Well, hello everyone. This is Chris Decker, University of Nebraska, Omaha, Department of Economics, College of Business. Coming back with you with an update on some data, July 17th, 2020, to get us a sense as to where our employment situation is in the state of Nebraska and the city of Omaha as things stand right now. So today, July 17th, we finally got our first look at the June employment data for Nebraska and Omaha as produced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And yesterday, we got the latest weekly unemployment claims for first-time filers, as well as some picture of continuing unemployment through about the second week of July. And that data taken together is going to give me some sense, or at least should give us some sense as to how the rest of the summer is going to play out and what to expect in the long term. So June came in very, very strong, much stronger than I had forecast. I had forecast a pretty strong uptick in jobs. I had forecasted we'd add about 9,000 jobs. I wouldn't have been surprised if I'd seen 10 or 11,000 jobs based on the strength of my statistical model, but we posted a gain of 17,700 jobs. That's just fantastic for the state. And we even had a slight upward revision in the May numbers. We added about 11,000 jobs as opposed to about 8 or so thousand in the preliminary May numbers. So all that's really good news. You can see we've come back with close to 30,000 jobs. Now that's still a far cry from the 84,000 that we lost in April, but it's a good good track. It's the right direction to be going in. So May and June looked very good, and even Omaha posted some nice gains too, much more than I had anticipated. I thought we'd get about 4,000 jobs back. We got about 7,700 jobs back, and again, the May number was revised up a little bit. So all in all, not too far off from expectation, but pleasantly surprised that the numbers came in much stronger than the model had generated. Most of the gains in the jobs in June came through in restaurants and bars. We had about 19,000 jobs added in restaurants and bars. There were some additional jobs added in the retail sector as well. I think most of these were people coming back off from being furloughed as our phased economy continued in through the month of June. There were some losses, obviously, in some other sectors. Those huge gains in restaurants and bars were offset by some declines in a number of sectors. Probably the biggest decline was in manufacturing. We seem to have lost about 1,200 so jobs, at least based on the latest Bureau of Labor Statistics report. A lot of the sectors held constant. A lot of sectors declined, but not by much. A lot of sectors held constant, didn't really add or subtract. And then we had a few big gains coming back in where you'd expect them to come back in restaurants and bars and in retail. So the gains in June, again, they were largely expected based on how the numbers were looking in terms of the first-time unemployment claims. They were pretty much declining through most of June. Continuing weeks on unemployment, that number continued to decline. Throughout the state of Nebraska and the city of Omaha, we were able to maintain some control over COVID-19 cases, and even in the U.S. through most of June, we were doing a pretty good job either maintaining or actually seeing some declines in cases. So all things were looking really good through most of June, but by the end of June and in early July, things really did seem to change. And I think most of us who've been sort of watching the news kind of know what's coming here, and that's going to have some implications for our forecast for our employment here in the city and our employment here in the state. First, the unemployment claims data really started spiking in the early part of July, and yesterday's report was unfortunately even worse. We added 6,112 people to the unemployment lines in the week ending the first week of July. And then as of yesterday, it seems as though we've added an additional 8,211. This is well ahead of what my expectation was in terms of where we would be in terms of adding to the unemployment rolls. I am disappointed, obviously, in these numbers, but we may be entering in to a situation where we're going to have to do some work to get these uh, people back to work a little bit harder than I had thought we would have to at this point. Even in Omaha, we saw some pretty significant upticks the last 2 weeks. My model had performed reasonably well in both cases right up until the first part of July, and then my model really started under predicting. We really started to see some uptick in unemployment. I think a lot of this can be attributed to the substantial outbreaks in COVID-19 cases in a lot of other states. This is going to have an impact on our economy here through the supply chain. A lot of companies in Nebraska will do business with other entities and other customers in other states. And as those other states have to backtrack on their phased reopening, as certainly is the case in California and Texas, and it may actually have to be the case in some other states that are hard hit, Georgia and Florida. It's certainly going to curtail some economic activity. Consumers are going to be hesitant to buy, businesses are going to be hesitant to invest and hire. That could have a real serious implication for us here locally. We haven't done the best job in controlling COVID outbreaks, but we've managed to keep hospitalization rates down in the state of Nebraska, which is wonderful. And we've managed to at least maintain COVID-19 new cases on a daily basis, maybe a little bit of a downturn. So we're doing pretty well here. It's just the rest of the country is not helping us in maintaining our recovery here. So this is quite troubling. I think overall July will experience larger unemployment claims than June did, and that's going to have some implications for the jobs created in July for our state. Um, the continuing claims data is suggesting some slowdown and decline. Most of May and June, we saw some dramatic declines, and that, again, was great news. This trend seems to have leveled off in the last couple of weeks, though. We really want to continue to get those numbers down, continue to get people off unemployment and back to work. But as things stand right now, this is another check mark against July for being a good month for employment. That could have some implications for August and into the long term as well. So why don't we go ahead and start talking about where we're going to end up in July and even start talking about August. There's going to be an uptick in unemployment claims in July. I think the data, certainly as of yesterday, is suggesting to me that we're going to have an uptick. If we got other states that are successful in controlling their COVID outbreaks, they really need to do some work on this front. That's going to help us out. And I think that rather than seeing a rapid escalation in unemployment claims in July, I think that, again, if other states get control of their COVID problems, and if we can maintain some control over our outbreak, then I think we can see this uptick in unemployment claims as a temporary uptick. I don't anticipate us going up to 20,000 or 25,000 on a weekly basis, at least not right now. So I'm cautiously optimistic that wiser minds will prevail in the decision-making environment in ours and other states, and we'll see some return to the sound behavior in controlling the COVID outbreak. It's going to help our economy out substantially. So that's my current forecast. I think for unemployment claims, we're going to get back on track here. Unfortunately, we have to backtrack a little bit, but I think we'll get back on track. And maybe by the end of August, we'll be down to, we'll be in the 4,000s again on a consistent basis. We'll see. But as things stand right now, we've got this blip that we have to manage, and I think that we will be able to do that. In terms of the employment, Situation, I fully anticipate that July's employment report, which we'll see in about a month, by the time we get to mid-August, we'll see the July numbers for the first time, just because the data comes out at a lag. I think there's going to be a decline. I hope not an enormous decline, but I do think there's going to be some retrenchment. I've got some estimates. Right now, they're estimates they could get revised, but I do think we're going to see a decline in employment in July relative to June. Hopefully this isn't a complete derailment of our job recovery, but I think it's going to be a pause for sure. Now, if other states can control their COVID outbreaks, and if Congress does, and I think it will act to do something by extending perhaps the unemployment stimulus that it introduced earlier through the CARES Act, the $600 on top of the typical unemployment compensation claim, or something which will encourage economic activity and encourage some confidence in our economy. I think if those two things do happen, then I think August will see a bounce back. So I think July is going to retrench, but if things go as I would think rational decision makers would want them to go, then I think that we'll be back on track with some job growth back in August. So what do the numbers actually look like? Well, here's what I'm currently thinking. After running my employment model again with the latest data, I think we're going to have to give back about 7,500 jobs in the state. We had gained, like I said, 11,200 and 17,700 jobs on a seasonally adjusted basis in May and June. I think we're going to see some retrenchment, perhaps between 7,000 and 8,000 jobs in July. By the time we get to August, if things go as planned, I think we could start our recovery again. I suspect we could get between 2,000 and 3,000 jobs back. With respect to Omaha, I think we're going to lose somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 jobs in July, and I think we'll get about half of those back, maybe a little less, about 1,020, 200, 1,260 jobs back in August to get us back on track. So I do think July is going to be a tough month in terms of jobs, but I think we can still, there's still enough momentum in this economy that should allow us, if we can get the COVID case under control, then I think we can get back on track relatively quickly. What are some of the implications for the long term? Well, prior to this latest late June COVID outbreak, I had expected Nebraska's economy to recover to pre-COVID-19 levels of employment by August of 2021. That is about a year and a month or so from now. Okay. And I think that's legitimate. Our economy here in Nebraska tends to be a little less cyclical than the rest of the nation. The duration of our recessions tend not to be as long or as deep as many other states. So calling for a full recovery by August 2021 at the time seemed reasonable. Now with this outbreak and with the numbers the way they're looking in terms of July's unemployment, I'm a little concerned that we're going to see some delay in full recovery, probably out to the end of 2021 when we'll fully recover to pre-COVID-19 levels. Possibly even January 2022. By the way, that is supposed to read 2022 on my slide, but certainly think at the end of 2021 is what we're looking at right now. Just to give you a picture of what I'm talking about here, that reddish line for both the state and for the city of Omaha in terms of employment was what I had previously forecast, kind of a nice strong recovery. I think the recovery is going to be a little more gradual now, and I think we'll get there. You know, we're going to get a recovery that will happen. It's just a matter of when, and I do think we're delayed by a few months because of this latest outbreak. So I think long term, the story is still good. We still have some strong fundamentals in our state. I do think that this is going to be a difficult couple of weeks and months, but I do think that the economy in and of itself is strong, and the underlying characteristics which define our economy are in good shape for a recovery certainly by the end of 2021. Now, look, if there's another outbreak, and if states aren't able to control their COVID releases and we don't get a vaccine sometime soon, then the long-term forecast could get ramped down again. That's just the nature of the link between the economy and a serious outbreak like this COVID case. It really does have a significant impact on commerce. So I'm going to close this video with my standard plea that the best strategy going forward is to maintain uh, good behavior in terms of how one conducts oneself in commercial activities. Maintain that social distancing, keep small groups, wear masks if you can. Certainly, as requested, take the steps necessary to try to avoid giving this COVID-19 a host to infect. And if we can do that, it's going to be better for our economy. And again, I think that the data is going to start looking a lot better once we get through the next couple of weeks. So with that, I'll close this out and be back to give you an update in a couple of weeks. We'll see how the unemployment claims look as we get towards the end of July. So with that, I'll close this out. Thank you for your time and attention.